one of the main people who are responsible for saving lives from COVID are the pulmonologists. And at NHS Hospital, Dr. Vineet Mahajan, as a part of the whole team of NHS which manage COVID, more than 500 patients effectively, is here today to talk about, it's actually not a robotic knee replacement talk, but on popular demand, we are going to request him to talk on post-COVID, what to do now. So I would request Dr. Vineet Mahajan to please come and talk on tips how to manage what to do now that the COVID is fizzling out. You know, there are lots of doubts about vaccine, whether to take or not. People are scared. So we need to know what's happening. Dr. Vineet. Audio on?
Good afternoon, and first of all I am thankful to the PIMACON organizing team to give a chance to speak about a disease which is literally stopped and halted all the conferences and all the meetings. The COVID pandemic, we all know. I will speak about our own experience at NHS Hospital. NHS Hospital was running a COVID facility of level 2 and level 3 care, and we started our work in July. And the main things which we experienced and we learned from it, I will try to share it with all the faculty. The things can be some of our experiences, maybe these are new, which we felt in this, will tell. First of all, definitely we have come a stage from COVID-19 to vaccine 21. This is all the highlight in all today's newspaper because we have got the vaccine for this COVID-19. So to start with, when we were asked to start the COVID center, there was a lot of attention how to do it. The most important thing is, for running a COVID center, we need a multidisciplinary approach and all the collective efforts of all the consultants and the support staff, right from the GDA to the sweeper level and staff nurses and consultants. And luckily, all our consultants gave volunteer consent to take part in the COVID treatment and helping the patients. So we started our center with a 15 bedded facility, which we raised to slowly we raised to, it was 80 patients at a time admitted in our hospital. So with this multi-disciplinary approach and collective effort, we definitely were able to manage this disease to the best of our capabilities. Till now, from the July, we have treated near about 800 patients which are admitted in our hospital of all the level 2 and level 3 facility. And the results are definitely approximately more than 700 patients we discharged after treating them in good condition, and the patients are also in follow-up now. So to begin with, first of all, the symptoms, how the patient presents to you. Patient presents to you with the most common symptoms of sore throat, fever and dyspnea. The most important is the fever. A spike of fever definitely in this era of pandemic raised the suspicion that the patient can be having a COVID infection. So some patients though come to OPD and some with hypoxia and oxygen saturation less than 90% in the emergency. So how to investigate these type of patients? First of all, a history of contact that was in the earlier days. Slowly we have got the patients who never told their any history of contact, but also the features suggestive of COVID. So routine blood investigations, we got like CBC, liver function test, renal function test, and the most important marker for viral load is CRP, C-reactive protein, which is being done in each and every patient who admitted in our emergency. Then comes the ferritin, serum ferritin level, and LDH level, and IL-6. So each and every test has its own importance. Then comes a radiology, the chest X-ray, Again, chest X-ray is very not. It was a very confirmatory test because in many patients we have seen the saturation was less than 90%, but the chest X-ray was normal. So, with developing facility, CT chest, HRCT chest for diagnosis of COVID was very effective than definitely the chest X-ray. So for the first to start with CRP level, generally we have seen our experience, generally it has importance in predicting the viral load. It is increased, normal value is 7, definitely some patients we have got the CRP less than 100, in some patients we have got CRP more than 700 also in very sick condition. Then LDH and ferritin definitely raised. IL-6 interleukin 6. Interleukin 6 is basically a crisis marker in COVID. Definitely a patient, admitted patient who is going to a COVID crisis, they say that IL-6 level increases and patient's oxygen requirement increases. But we have seen many patients which are already totally stable without any oxygen requirement, with only COVID, not any associated disease, but IL-6 level was markedly raised. So definitely we have seen so many of disparities in all these tests that you can't predict that this test is a single test which will tell the prognosis is bad or a prognosis is good. So most important in our practice was CRP, C-reactive protein. Then CT chest, definitely CT scoring we got from the radiologist, that CT scoring less than 5 or 7, no need of admission. Then if it is more and if it is less, more than 20, then we say that extensive level 3 disease is there with oxygen level less than 90%. Then comes the role of liver function test, most important, because the drugs we use for COVID, the most commonly used drug which was remdesivir is having some liver side effects on the liver. So we have to get the basic protocol. Renal status, definitely patients of chronic kidney disease which are coming to us with acute presentation in COVID. It may be due to COVID or exacerbation of the chronic kidney disease in an acute form. So that was important. Then in some patients, definitely we got to rule out systemic infection, or in cases which are admitted to us for 4 to 5 days, CRP increasing, fever spike is there, we are suspecting the bacterial pneumonia or the fungal infection. So there comes the importance of serum procalcitonin. Serum procalcitonin just to rule out sepsis and increasing bacterial load. So when we get all the tests, what was our protocol? We started with remdesivir to the patients. There was a patients of saturation less than 90%. It is a level 2 disease with on simple oxygen mask and CRP level markedly raised, and CT scan is showing extensive lesions of ground glass. So in these patients we gave remdesivir 200 milligram loading dose on the first day and followed by 4 doses of 100 milligram each for the next 4 days. So total 6 vials in 5 days, that is a standard protocol which is followed. In some patients we gave it for 2 days extra, like the patient is improving but CRP level is not decreasing, there is no evidence of any bacterial infection, and chest X-ray is showing slow improvement. In those cases with dyspnea, we used remdesivir for the 6th and 7th day. In some patients, in those patients which we have used this, there was improvement in clinical status and oxygenation, and definitely in some centers it was used for 10 days also, we discuss in many, but we maximum it used up to 7th day. So after getting investigations, we started with definitely remdesivir, and the oral thinner, IV blood thinner we used was enoxaparin or dalteparin. Alternate, in some patients we use enoxaparin, and dalteparin is a standard OD dose with repeated of D-dimer test, which I forgot in the earlier. The D-dimer test is very important because COVID is definitely a clotting disease, which clots all over the body are there, and we have to prevent them or to dissolve them. So D-dimer was in some patients raised. So we use enoxaparin or dalteparin in comparative doses in the OD dose. Then there was a role of steroids. Steroids we used in only those patients which had hypoxia on admission. We never used in any patient which never had any hypoxia. So we used solumedrol, methylprednisolone 40 milligram, standard dose OD, or dexamethasone 6 to 8 milligram OD. Earlier we used methylprednisolone, then we used dexamethasone, but results were more or less the same. There is no clinical difference, or we can say there is much improvement by this steroid or this steroid. The both have the same efficacy in all the patients. Then a simple antibiotic ceftriaxone we used with azithromycin and with vitamin C, zinc, and supportive treatment. And for oxygenation, definitely first of all simple oxygen mask. Then there comes a role of a high flow rebreathing mask, which is indicated by the guidelines by the Punjab government, by an expert group in the Punjab, which is taking care of all the guidelines for the COVID. High flow rebreathing mask. And those patients who were not maintaining saturation of more than 90% on high flow rebreathing mask, or who were dyspneic in spite of giving all the treatment, obvious dyspnea is there, respiratory rate is more than, you say, 20-25, and ABG, arterial blood gas, is showing PaO2 or FiO2 ratio is less than 250. In those cases we use non-invasive ventilation, BiPAP. That is definitely very effective. And the technique we used for the BiPAP, we never gave BiPAP to any patient continuously for say 10 hours or 12 hours you have to be on BiPAP. We used it 2 hours BiPAP and 2 hours high flow rebreathing mask. Just one thing, patient was very comfortable when, because patient gets very uncomfortable when he is on BiPAP for say more than 6 hours continuously, and we can't remove the BiPAP. So in those patients we use 2 hours BiPAP session and 2 hours on high flow rebreathing mask in prone position. So definitely we got very good results. And BiPAP, as we all know, it is a double-edged sword in COVID. We have seen many patients coming to us or in hospital. The most common complication which we got in our center was pneumopericardium and pneumomediastinum. There was all air filled right from the trachea to go the mediastinum or pericardium, and pneumothorax patients, percentage of pneumothorax patients was very less. So all the air that accumulated in the pericardium. So this was the most common complication from the high pressure we use in BiPAPs. So we use it on simple pressures, and we gave a gap with the high flow rebreathing mask. And that technique definitely we saw in last 6 months that worked. The side effect profile decreases, and definitely in those patients, in the pneumopericardium or pneumomediastinum, it is a dreadful complication, and as such there is no such drainage for this air, and we have to wait and watch with high flow oxygen only, just it get resolved. And in some patients it get resolved with simple oxygen also. So that is the most common complication we encountered in our experience, the pneumopericardium and pneumomediastinum. Regarding the other complications, we got in some patients we got cerebral mucormycosis. That was also present in, and in some patients, in spite of monitoring D-dimer and giving the enoxaparin or dalteparin, we have got patients of stroke inside the hospital also, in spite of giving. So stroke patients we encountered, patient admitted with the respiratory symptoms, and down the line, after even giving remdesivir and all the treatment, they got stroke. Definitely stroke patients, the slow recovery but improved. So regarding the treatment part is the main things. We've discussed the three things. We used remdesivir and in blood thinners and you say steroids and Limsi, zinc and the oxygenation. The one drug we started, definitely in the start we used in some patients we used favipiravir, the oral antiviral agent, but definitely we saw that SGOT, SGPT levels markedly raised in 2 to 3 days, and intolerance or nausea was very common. So definitely we used it very less. We never used this drug in OPD or in IPD patients. So the role of doxycycline we use in very few patients. Earlier we used azithromycin and HCQ. HCQS was ruled out, then we never used it. And oral drugs, definitely that ivermectin also. Ivermectin and all these studies are there definitely, but the results are good with azithromycin and the supportive treatment only, and steroids where the oxygen is less. The main thing we saw that the patients who were getting complications or the patients who were getting prolonged stay in the hospital were only those who were taking treatment at home and were not going to a physician or to the nearby doctor for COVID treatment. So the patients who came to us in the early stages, definitely the results are very good. Some patients coming after 10 to 12 days, all the CT and was full of ground glassing, but in spite of that, if we start the things quite early, the results are better. So I can say that definitely the treatment of this level 2 and level 3 facility is working in that center. It is definitely not an easy thing to see all the patients complaining and of symptoms dyspnea, and you have to do, and we have the basic modalities. We don't have much options for that. We have a simple high flow rebreathing mask, then BiPAP, and then invasive ventilation. Invasive ventilation is not very effective because lungs compliance is already gone with so much of inflammation in the lungs, patient coming with ARDS, and when we intubate that patient, compliance is low and we are not getting saturation even after in prone position on 100% of FiO2. So the results which are good is definitely with non-invasive ventilation. So to conclude it, I can say the first thing is better early to diagnose and early to treat. The symptoms, patient coming to us with symptoms, you have to get the CT or X-ray, the basic modality, CRP and D-dimer, and treat it early. And remdesivir is definitely a very good drug in our experience, which has a very good results, and it worked in decreasing the morbidity, decreasing the hospital stay. It worked in all the things. And then some complications, we have to treat them. And post-COVID patients are coming to us with pneumothorax, with pneumopericardium, and with the lung fibrosis. In fibrosis, we use the drug nintedanib, which definitely came just in our practice just 4 to 5 months back. Nintedanib, that was also useful in fibrosis patients. So we have to treat it early, and we all have to work collectively to treat this patient. Not a single person, it's not a single person job to treat all the patients, because we have to discuss some things. We also use that expert group we used to consult to our teachers who taught us in our times for what the options we have. So definitely now we are in a stage where COVID is definitely decreased, and the vaccine which has been launched today, we see the results can be good. The vaccine results are good, and we see the number of patients definitely coming less. Thank you so much.